folks. How are you? Getting all kinds of opposition this week. Somebody don't want me talking. Mentor with a mouth. Never shuts up. Let's give folks a minute or two. I'm going to put it on mute for a second. I'm going to go make sure I have a fresh bottle of Fiji water next to me. It's going to be a short one, I promise you. Usually I say that stuff and we go on for a long, long, long time, but I don't have that much to say today. If you can believe that. Just give them a couple more minutes, let everybody sign in. Last summer, over the period of the summer months, I don't know exactly when they were, but there was X Spaces hosted by Kit, him as ICT_concepts. He has a wonderful community where everybody comes together and they uplift one another, they encourage one another, they remind each other that it's not easy, but it's worth doing. And I've always found it delightful to listen to everyone kind of like roll their sleeves up and show their heart. And sometimes through tears and sometimes through, making fun of yourself just to relax and realize that, it's a process. It's not easy to do what we do as traders, and all the more difficult in this present, age of corruption, manipulations, all kinds of geopolitical things. And that's why I constantly remind all of you, if you just recently started learning how to do this and you press through it and you find consistent profitability, you have done the most in terms of all of trading history. All of trading history, you chose to do this at the most difficult time to do it. So don't let it discourage you, and don't have such a high hope of expecting to do it very easily, very quickly. Just go out there and start making lots of money real fast. So it's important for me as an educator, as a mentor, as someone that's done it, to remind you that it is not going to be easy right now. It's going to be very challenging. The markets are going to be, you're going to have the rug pulled out from underneath you, the roof blown off. And if you're over leveraging and you have no real risk respect, no protocol in place to rein yourself in so that way you don't over leverage yourself, you could wind up harmed, by your own hands. And you can blame the market, you can blame this, that, and the other thing, but ultimately no one put you in that risk but you. So I kind of want to start this discussion today with that, because I see a lot of people pushing really, really hard, trying to get a lot of money, big trades off, and they're taking on way too much risk. And how fast these markets are moving around, the volatility is like snap. You're in there already 100 handles in the index markets. In literally seconds, the markets like silver and gold are moving hundreds of points. That's a dream come true for someone like myself that started in the 90s. We never imagined that there'd be a day like you're seeing today. And you can have your head cleanly removed from your shoulders just with a static price bounce here and there that would in a normal market condition, when the volatility is not so extreme, it would just be probably 4 or 5 points. But it's so exaggerated now. They know that there's a fevered pitch for people to get out there and trade and buy and buy and buy and buy and buy. So they keep extrapolating the measure of volatility. And that's not buying and selling pressure. That's them controlling the price and widening the disparity between where the market was moments ago to where they want to take it next. And if you don't appreciate that measure of risk, you're doing it absolutely wrong. And you're asking for the cause and effect of not knowing something and being ignorant and having a gambler's mentality and just placing a huge bet on, let's see what happens. What's going to happen is you're going to have a whole lot of regret. You're going to have a whole lot of remorse. And for some of you, this is probably going to be the shortest career choice ever by starting trading this year because it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. But inside of this, there's lots of opportunity, wild opportunity. So I know I probably piqued a lot of your curiosity, but before I go any further, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. I didn't do an audio check. So I just want to ask you all if you could do that now. Just give me a 5x5. Let me know you hear me. Just looking for a couple of them to let me know you guys can hear me fine. Thank you, Short Fuse. Thank you, Adam. All right, so if you recall, over the summer, Kit was hosting his normal trader roundup and whatnot. Now, I think some of them were kind of like piggybacking on an X space that I may have done, but they're not always like that. He runs his own community, he does his own thing. But sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes he would follow up, and he might do that today. And I'm actually encouraging him to do that today, actually, because I'm going to leave you with a couple questions. And I'd like to hear what all of you that are willing to share that, not just in a post back to me. I want to hear your voice. I want to hear your concerns. I want to hear the lack of concern if that's what you have. Like I want to put a voice behind the sentiment in response to the questions I'm going to pose today. But over the summer, I was telling everybody that gold and silver were going to go up. And I've been telling you for years that these things were to go up. I said it emphatically in 2019. I said it emphatically all throughout 2020. And here we are. Okay. And there wasn't many people out there saying that. And now people always said, buy gold, buy silver. It's an investment. It's real money. This and that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people calling an extrapolated run up a mega trade type thing. And I guess if you allow me to speak in a manner where I'm not trying to congratulate myself, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. And if you listen to me today, you'll hear that I'm not wearing the ICT gimmick today. Okay, I'm talking to you as Michael. I'm not trying to be the entertainer, educator, trying to get y'all worked up in a froth and stuff. There's stone cold in me in here today. Okay, I just want to make sure you understand that I want to talk to you sober-mindedly, so that way you can hear me, understand what I'm saying, and don't just look at it and dismiss it as, oh, well, this guy. I want you to really understand what I'm going to speak on today. Because if you haven't been paying attention, it's going to be real obvious going forward now that you're going to see the things I told you. Okay? Don't worry, it's not a Bible study for some of you that are already worried about that. But I talked about how gold and silver were going to start going up a lot. And my private mentorship students would all be nodding there and say, yeah, he said all that stuff. He said all that. And I mentioned to you that it would be uncivilized for anyone that's holding gold and silver not to take profits. It doesn't mean go short. It doesn't mean exit all your positions. So I want you to understand that I'm not saying that I'm calling the top or that I called the top. In fact, I came out and said I was not calling the top. And that was at 102.5. I said, but you need to be taking something off if you're long. The reason why I felt inclined to talk about that and mention it, because you don't see me actively trying to put you in ideas about entering, going long or short on the metals, because the volatility is so high, and because a lot of you don't listen. You like to read into what I'm speaking, and you add things to something that I may or may not have implied or had in mind when I was speaking. Not everything I'm saying is a enigmatic riddle for you to figure out. Sometimes a language barrier exists because you're not from the States like I am, and I may use a cliche or an expression that you're not familiar with, and you may take that and read it from a translation, some kind of an application. A lot of you guys don't like when I do these Twitter Spaces because there's no way for you to hear in your own language, and I don't have a compensation for that, but I never put these things on my YouTube channel. There's dozens of people out there that do that. I just don't want to put it on my channel. Okay, so you're welcome to put every Twitter Space I've ever done, put it on your YouTube channel and get some grocery money off of it. I don't care. I don't care. People are going to listen to it. They're going to watch it. There'll be comments and whatever. But I think that when you understand what I was saying over the summer, the metal markets, while they are going to go up because there's a rush for a gold-backed currency, the BRICS nations have had this in mind. They've been working aggressively to try to do that, to unseat the dollar as the global reserve currency. And I don't think they're resting at all in that regard. I think that that's still very much underway. And our dollar is essentially toilet paper. Like, there's really no value behind it anymore. We used to use oil as a way of propping it up, and we went over to Desert Storm, did all that stuff to control oil. We're down there in Venezuela taking their oil, and selling it, which I gotta tell you, I don't know how else to see that as we shouldn't be doing that. As a nation, we should not be doing that. That's theft. What would happen if Russia and China said, yeah, we don't like the governor of Texas, and we're not real fond of Trump, so we're just going to go down to Texas and just, we're just going to start selling the oil that Texas pumps out and Alaska pumps out. So, we're going to do it for the benefit of the Texans and Alaskans and for the American people. It doesn't sit well, and it's, to me, that's a big warning sign. And I got to remind all of you that I have never voted. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not anything, because I know that bird has a right wing and a left wing. And it's not a bird that I want to fly with. Like, I don't believe either side. Just look around, and the things that are happening globally, UK, Ireland, all these things are migrating here. They're happening here. And because this movement by the BRICS nations to have a gold-backed currency, that in it would absolutely make the position that's been afforded to the dollar, the greenback, as a reserve currency. What interest, what advantage would any nations have in doing business globally with our dollar if they can do it with a currency that's backed by gold? Because ours is no longer backed by gold. When Nixon took off the gold standard, what's the currency worth then? Nothing. It's an illusion. We were promised that we were going to see an audit in Fort Knox to see how much gold's there. Isn't that interesting how that just went away? Like, what's going on? Like, where's the gold? I'm not convinced there's anything in there. And if there is, it's probably 14 karat plated. That's how because everything that's been going on since 2001, I have been looking at these things critically. And because I am a person that speculates in the marketplace, I take that information and I translate into how they would utilize that in the markets. How could they manipulate the viewpoints of the average person on the street and then cause some kind of capitulation in the marketplace where the majority wouldn't expect it. And that creates opportunity. Before I subscribed to the idea that the markets are algorithmic, that's the mindset I had. It was always constantly, who's gonna get screwed over next. And I think that largely still is what goes on algorithmically. It's just done more efficiently. And just so you guys know, I know a lot of you are requesting to speak. I'm not Kit. Like I'm not going to have a conversation with any of you on my space because number one, it won't let me get through the content I want to speak on. But you're welcome if he has a space after this one. You can say whatever you want to say. I'll hear you, whether you agree or disagree, or if you whatever you want to say about it, I will be listening to it. But I don't want to have a conversation with anybody one-on-one in my space because I like to have the things that are on my mind. And because I don't have anything written down, I want to have the continuity just come out organically. But I think that if we were to shift to a gold-backed dollar, if we went back on that as a gold standard, that would crush the movement of the BRICS nation. At least in the near term, it would make it, well, why bother? Because now let's go back to using the dollar because there's so much structure in place. Then here it is. Let's just resume this. If the dollar doesn't do, or the American government and its presidency and leadership and whatnot, if they don't follow through, then we can still use an alternative. But isn't it interesting that, instead of tariffs and instead of all the things that we're being, forced to do, pay, because we as the American people, we're paying the tariff. China's not paying it. All the other countries, they're not paying it. You are. And we're already illegally taxed more than we should. We pay tax on everything. And the morons in Virginia that voted for this nutcase that came out in the first week of her career, signs into legislation that there's going to be all kinds of things that's going to raise up taxation. Like, what are you talking about? I'm reading things about how states want to include a bicycle tax. If you want to ride your bicycle, you have to pay a tax every year to do that. Eventually, what's going to happen is you're going to be paying an oxygen tax just to breathe. But they don't own that. They don't own the air. I'm telling you, I said it a couple years ago, the next big control thing is going to be water. Fresh drinking water. They already created a contract for it. It's sitting just dormant. But they're moving towards that. And I talked about how 15-minute smart cities were the thing. That's the next thing you need watching for. Well, if you follow me, you saw that I put a little period so you can watch a video that I saw. And we talked about that a year and a half ago. We talked about a year and a half ago. And now look what's happening. You can't travel as you want more than this many miles, or then you're going to start being taxed. About 10 years ago, when I started seeing all of the intersections in my state have all these little cameras up, I thought to myself, this is a really good idea. Because if you think about it, 90% of car accidents occur in intersections. So to me, it would make it easy for us as a victim of an accident that we didn't have any calls in, we were a victim of. Someone runs a red light, someone does an illegal turn, something like that. Those cameras are recording everything. So I thought to myself, well, how convenient. Like, they're doing a service for us. I didn't look at it as being intrusive. I didn't look at it as a control mechanism until years that went by, and I started thinking to myself, wait a minute, they're putting them up everywhere, like everywhere. So it's surveillance. And we're seeing now why all these things are popping up, because they're going to implement some more draconian procedures of control, taxation, and it's imprisonment. There's no other way around it. That's what it is. It's imprisonment. Like, who are they to tell us we can't travel and go wherever we want to go? We're not prisoners. We're already taxed so much. People can't even afford groceries. Their utility bill, off the charts. And they're talking about how they want to tax this, that, and the other thing. You order Amazon, well, you're going to pay even more. You're a fool, you're a moron, and you buy DoorDash, they're going to tax you even more on top of that. Why are they entitled to that? Why do they think they're entitled to that? Because what they're doing is they're squeezing all of you and me. I'm not exempt from this. But this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing these incredibly overreaching control measures that if you're just happy-go-lucky walking through this place thinking that, you're trading, you're running your little prop firm account, you're getting a little bit of money here, getting a little bit of bread in your pocket, getting some people to like you on social media and think you're living a life, you need to wake up, man. Like, you need to wake up. There's some dark, dark stuff going on. And everybody in leadership is part of it. Like, the asylum, patients are running the asylum. They're governing us. They're governing us. These mad people, these crazy people, these lunatics, these pedophiles, okay? They're all complicit. And now you have all these files being dropped, okay? I ain't looking at none of that stuff. I don't want to know what they were doing. I already knew enough to know that they're sick. These people are sick. They're demonic, and they're disgusting monsters. And it's not surprising to see how all of these people are rubbing shoulders with our quote-unquote senators, our leadership, our representatives. Let me say it that way. I don't like the term leadership because they're not supposed to be leading us. We're supposed to be telling them what we want as the people. It's the people's nation. It's not the senators. They're not kings. They're not queens. They don't have crowns. We kicked England's ass and said, no, you ain't going to govern us. To do what? To come over here and have worse. By small little samplings of the arsenic, we sipped it a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And now look what we got. 1% tax. We went to war over that. Look what you're paying right now. Look at your paycheck. Look what you have to spend to get anything while spending what you got left over. And they're taxing you more. They're preparing even more. And they're going to say that you can't do this, that, and the other thing. All of these fires, they're direct energy weapons. Because they want that property. They want that real estate. They want that. That's what they want to do in Gaza. That's what they want that for. That's what they want it for. The same thing they did over there in Hawaii. The same thing they did in Southern California. That's what's going on. If they burn it all out, they come in, buy it up on the cheap, pennies on the dollar, and they put in smart cities. Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. Why would they want to do that? Well, you might want to research that. Look into it. It's all part of Agenda 2030. We only have a few years left before we get to 2030, folks. Things are going to ramp up extremely fast. And if you're not paying attention, you may be shocked of all the things that's starting to pop up. They're popping up so fast, and it's going to affect all of you. It's going to affect me. It's going to affect everybody, whether you make a lot of money, whether you don't make a lot of money, whether you're Republican or Democrat, whether you are in the United States or another country, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect you. So my question is what are you going to do about it? What is it you're going to do? What have you done? Are you going to not go on vacation? You're not going to travel because you're going to be taxed because the cameras are recording everything about your car, your travels. And now because you traveled more than X amount of miles in a year, now they're going to penalize you. What does that sound like to you? Did you vote for that? Did anyone that you voted for or their opposition, did they tell you out front, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to implement? No, they're just doing it. Why? Because they've seen since 2001, they can blow up buildings and tell you somebody flew some planes in there and did it. And you bit, chewed, and swallowed. Hook, line, and sinker. You believed it. I believed it too when it first happened. I believed it was outside of our own country. I don't believe that now. I can't listen to this guy. Go ahead, just go and go have a wonderful weekend. Be safe. Enjoy your family. I wish you nothing but the best. But I warned you what this stuff was going to be about today. Okay. Silver market. I said that you want to take your profits because they don't have enough of it. They don't have enough of it. It's what happened when in the 80s, two brothers got together and they cornered the silver market. And when it came to realization that there wasn't enough silver to come to delivery, collapse. Now, right now, there is a fundamental, real need, a real supply and demand factor for silver. Cell phone makers and the batteries that go in them, they had discovered that the lithium that is problematic, sometimes it can leak and cause explosions and catch fire. They've been looking for alternative ways to combat that. And they discovered by laying a small little layer of silver, it prevents that from happening. So now what does that create? How many people have cell phones? A lot of people, right? How often are they buying a new cell phone? Well, if you're like me, when I was carrying it around all the time, I know you think I'm carrying my phone around a lot. I'm not. It's only when I'm sitting down and I have a moment of whatever it is I'm doing, I'm working on, I'll have a thought jump in my head and I'll post a tweet. And then there it is. I'm not sitting on there hovering over top of it. But there was a time when I was running mentorship, I constantly had it on next to me because I was looking for feedback from students. I told them, look, reach out to me on Twitter if you're having an issue with your account, whatnot. That was a way for me to have constant, immediate feedback because email wasn't efficient. But I would drop my phone and they would break. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go buy another phone. How many phones have you bought in the last 3 years? The last 5 years? Now do that by billions of people around the world. So now we have a real supply and demand with little supply of silver. And China making the most cell phones, they're going to be doing what? They're going to be buying lots of it. So we have silver going up, as I mentioned last year, and for the last several years, it's gone up, 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 up. And I said it would be uncivilized for any of you not to take some profits here. Because we're at a range where there's a lot of institutions that have been trying to sell short silver because the paper market is manipulated. It's been manipulated and held back artificially for decades. For decades. And we went into a new frontier. 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, all the way up to 121.70. Just shy of $122 on silver. Now, they're going to tell you it's because Trump picked a new Fed chairman that's hawkish, not so dovish. And they're going to want to raise interest rates. I promise you this, if you haven't learned anything, when they come out and tell you this is the reason why this is happening, that's not the reason why it's happening. That's not what it is. That's the excuse they want everybody to get on social media and talk about and say, oh, yeah, this, that, that thing, because most people are lazy. Most people listening to me are going to just listen to what I'm saying. If you like me as a person, if you like me as a mentor teaching, you just believe everything I say. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to look at the things I say and see if there's evidence to support my opinion, because that's what it is. It's an opinion. Don't believe anything you hear. Investigate it yourself. Look at it. Be an independent, critical thinker. Don't adopt somebody else's opinion, especially mine. When I was younger, I thought I knew everything, and I didn't know anything at all. But because I could make money, I thought I was smart. I was not smart. And I still don't think of myself as highly superior intellectually. I'm no smarter than anyone else. But I've been paying attention since 2001, and the things that have been transpiring, not only in our own country, but everywhere else. It's marching to this one centralization of global governance. And how can they wrestle and wrangle everybody's participation? Well, it has to be by force, because there's going to be people like me, maybe some of you, that we're just not going to be willing to submit to these types of things. I'm not going to do it. I'm just simply not going to do it. I'm not. So I'm not going to conform to it. The bottom line is we have a constitution here. Okay. And your country may or may not have something similar to that. But here in the United States, we have a constitution. We have a Bill of Rights. And they have dumbed down our society here, where most of these individuals don't even know what the Constitution says or what the Bill of Rights gives them in terms of protections. They don't know it. They don't know their rights. They don't know what's going on right now is an infringement on those rights. And that's what they've been doing. They've been slowly diluting the gene pool and allowing them to feel like they're social justice warrior, getting out there, standing, get out there and make a stand. You're actually fighting for the undermining of your own rights. You don't even see it because you're stupid. They've made you stupid. They've blinded you with a sense of, well, you're significant. You're significant when you get out there in the street and act like a fool. You're significant when you burn your own neighborhoods down, your own citizens, neighbors, businesses that are in your own neighborhoods. You're burning them down. It makes you feel significant. You're justified. You're an idiot. You're doing everything they want you to do. And when silver climbs up, 120, they got a perfect excuse why they're going to do the rug pull. Because they don't have the silver to deliver that. They don't have it. What happens if silver is at these inflated prices? Because lots of purchases have been made and delivery is expected. In other words, the people that want to buy it, large conglomerates like Samsung and other cell phone companies that make the batteries that go in them, they need the silver. They need it. So when they're buying the contracts, they're not buying it to profit. They're buying it because they want to take delivery of it. There's a difference. Okay. So imagine if the market was trading at next to the close of the contract month. We don't have a January contract. Okay. Right now we're trading in March, and when March expires, the last day of that month is the final delivery day, where if you're trying to take delivery of the silver, that's the day you got to get it. And then we roll over to May. We're in an area where they have to get control over this thing, because if they don't have the silver to deliver it, these exchanges like the COMEX, they do things like this. And it's not widely known, okay? But this is what really goes on. If there isn't a way to deliver it, okay, if you are buying a commodity, whatever commodity that is, it's on the exchange, then we're going to use silver as the example. If there is no commodity or supply to deliver to those individuals that want to actually receive it, they bought the contract, they assumed the responsibility and risks of it, all the risks of holding that contract and the fluctuations in price. If they bought it and they made money on the contract valuation, that's one thing, okay? But they're not in it for that. They're in it to actually receive all of the silver in their hands, because they want to use it to manufacture that little layer of silver in the battery on the cell phones. So that way the batteries don't overheat and blow up and cause fires. So what happens when there is no supply? What actually happens is the parties exchange through cash. And they'll say, okay, look, we don't have it. So it's trading at 120. Will you take 110? Will you take $100? Because they don't have it to give. So they start bartering. And if you don't understand what this really means, is they're going to control the justification why the price goes down when it's really algorithmic. That's what was going on. It was a controlled demolition. But from the exchange perspective, where there's a large conglomerate user, now I'll give you an example. This is a real world example, and you can go watch a video of Mr. Williams, Larry Williams. He actually did this. He got into the sugar market, and he bought lots and lots of sugar, and he bought most of it. He cornered the market. His words, it was legit. And he literally was selling his his sugar, table sugar, white sugar, the poison stuff they put in everything to feed cancer and whatnot. He was selling the sugar at a higher price than it settled at on the contract month he took delivery of. So he received and took delivery of the sugar, but he was selling it at a higher price. What happens if it's you that has to supply the commodity? See, he was taking delivery of it. He wasn't supplying it to the market as a supply. He was a consumer buying it. He wanted to buy it because he felt it was a worthwhile investment for him to just keep buying. He cornered it, actually took most of the sugar.